Got it. All right. Interesting. So it's so you buy these properties or you facilitate these
So
properties.
I call it this way. I'm a pandit, Amit. I get the advertiser, the bride, and I get the broadcaster, the groom together, and I get my commission. तो पंडित भी तो वही करते हैं. आदमी और गण को साथ लाते, मैं भी वही करता हूँ. LIC एजेंट हूँ मैं. In other words.
Amazing energy, man.
In my head, I was spinning right the disruption for Audible when Vishal was talking about it, right? How the ecosystem can come on top of it and the way they read books, right, versus the way Vishal will tell about it. I think there could be a lot of ecosystem which could be built.
थोड़ा वो शांत हो जाए. लाइव चल रहा है अभी. Hello.
Hi everyone. So I think we are also now live. So we'll just admit everyone in a minute. And Ridhima, you just take care of the screen sharing once we start. Okay. So we'll start with Amit, followed by Hitesh, followed by Sushant and Vishal in this order. So it's 11. Ridhima, you can stop the PPT. We'll start the session. Okay, so good morning, everyone. Welcome to an hour session on conversation filled with books. Thinking impacts our actions and actions impact our destiny. So on that note, today's session is all about thinking. My name is Nipun and I am a friend of book. We'll have four friends of books talking about a book today, all related to thinking. And the whole objective of this session today is to provide you a very good glimpse, or more than glimpse, actually a good flavor and a perspective of the book, what the book is about. If you have read the book, you'll get a different perspective from these speakers on how they approach the book, what were their learnings, what did they like, etc. And if you haven't read the book, it gives you a very, very clear idea that should this book be in my reading list or not. So on that note, I'll quickly tell you the structure. We'll have four speakers, four friends of books. And I also request everyone other than the speaker to keep themselves on mute. Is anything you can obviously use the chat window.
मेरा है, ऐसे मत ले लो.
Your comments, questions, etc. And we'll have each speaker talking 10 minutes broadly about the book. So the idea is we end this sharp at 12. On that note, I will introduce our first speaker to you. His name is Amit Kasliwal. And if you have seen the creative of the invites, his one-line description is very, very interesting. Truth seeker and founder of The Hurdle. After having spent many years climbing the corporate ladder from companies like Times Group, Hero, to Ford India, what truly changed Amit's life were two things. One, first being the midlife crisis, which a lot of us go through. And second was a course at INSEAD, which not many of us get the chance. For the first time in life, Amit had a clarity about his life and his priorities. With this became a tiny idea, which shaped in his mind. If he could figure out a way to jump over one of the biggest hurdle life threw at him, surely there must be a way in which he could use his learnings in such a way that more people can benefit from it. And that's how D-Huddle, and that's a very interesting name of his venture, was born. Amit has partnered and shared his knowledge of de-huddling life with many corporates of stature like Google, American Express, Siemens, Aditya Birla, Tata, and Reliance, to name a few. More than 20,000 people have gained from D-Huddle's boot camps and talks. He has been featured on TEDx, and I would suggest you to watch the TEDx video. It's a very interesting video, which talks about Infinity Chakra. And when he has time, he writes for Indian Press. A graduate from INSEAD, Amit's online content has garnered more than 20 million views. He lives in Gurgaon with his wife Swati and son Jab. More than avid reader, he calls himself a curious reader, and that makes Amit a true friend of books for our platform, which is all about curiosity from books. On that note, let's again welcome Amit. Hello, Amit. Very warm welcome to you. You are on mute. Request you to unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you.
It's great to have you here.
Yeah.
And we look forward to the book talk. I'll quickly share just 2 lines about your book, and then it's over to you. So the book that Amit is going to speak to you about is called The Power of Nunchi. I hope I pronounced it right, Amit.
Nunchi.
Nunchi. Okay, Nunchi. It is the Korean sixth sense of winning friends and influencing people. And Nunchi can help you connect with others so that you can succeed in everything from business to love. And I think no better thing to start a Saturday morning on conversation than a topic like this. So thanks, Amit, once again, and over to you.
Hey, so this is the book. I am reviewing it. This was gifted by my friend Palak Jain. So the credit goes to Palak for introducing me to this beautiful book. So it's 11:05, and I have 10 minutes to wrap up and pick my thoughts on the book. So this is a secret and a guiding principle from the Korea, and Enu Hong is the author of this book. You can see Enu Hong's beautiful picture right there. So Nunchi is pronounced as Nunchi. Now this is more about the author. She's written 3 more books, and you can see how the rise of South Korea and K-pop star and the Gangnam Style. I'm sure you would have heard of Gangnam Style. So there's a secret of why South Korea as a country has progressed, and the credit goes to Nunchi. So Nunchi, in very common parlance, you can think of a way of life for every South Korean. Nunchi, try and understand, is also about gauging others' thoughts and feelings. Now, imagine if you get the power to gauge other thoughts and feelings, and eventually then leads to building trust, building connection, and building harmony. And when these 3 are there, then everything's fall in place, whether it is relationship or a deal about business or just having fun in among friends and so on and so forth. Try and also visualize use of Nunchi. So Nunchi is about you step into a room. Now, how do you gauge others' thoughts and feeling, and what things which you have to keep in mind? So everything is books revolved around a plot, sort of. You are getting into a room, and how do you gauge others' thoughts and feelings? So what are those rules which you have to follow? So this is my pick, and I was looking for, I always look for practical application of book and how I can learn. So this is my pick from the book, while you can go through the entire book. So there are 8 clear rules of Nunchi. The author also talked about that your Nunchi is quick Nunchi or slow Nunchi, means how fast your Nunchi is. So Nunchi is like your ability to gauge other thoughts and feeling, how quick you are, how fast you are. So starting one, first rule, empty your mind. Very simple. If you are getting into any room, we go with this preconceived notion, or there's some thought process going around, some working which you have got, and you're going with that thought process. So the first rule of Nunchi, and which in fact Bruce Lee also talks about, is empty your cup. So if cup is already full and then something won't go inside it, it will only overflow. So the first rule of Nunchi is you are stepping into a room is empty your mind. Now this is an art, So in fact, I remember my days of working on myself and I would prepare myself to clear the clutter or the thoughts which are going in the mind before I step into my home. Because there is a fresh contact, there is fresh, I need to find connection with them. Second, be aware of the Nunchi observer effect. So, my learning out of this and the way I connect this is that we carry certain energy. And a lot of people don't have sense of their own energy, sense of their own presence. We change the dynamic and change energy of that place. I'm sure all of you have some leader or some relative whom you can recall, and that person, as soon as the person steps into the hall or that room, the dynamic changes. So how you get aware that whether you speak or not speak, the dynamic changes. The third thing is, if you've just arrived in the room, remember that everyone was there longer. So there is something was going on. There was some energy, some context going around. So don't try and disrupt it. There is something already going on, even, and how do you go with that awareness, just so that just don't go and start your drama or shout around or do something crazy. There's something already happening there and you are just stepping. It's like water is flowing there and you're just stepping in there. So already there's some action happening in the room. Oh, this is fantastic. This is a great rule for especially people who have a gift of gab and they speak a lot and they think speaking is powerful. Speaking is not powerful. There's always opportunities of shutting up your mouth, even though if you're tempted to speak, like I was one of those who would speak without sense a lot of time, and that is not yielding me build connections and build trust and harmony among those people whom I'm meeting. So you have to, when you are there alive and you have a good nunchi, you know where you need to shut up, because that this opens so much of new information, new things which you can always pick up from the room. So learn to shut up, and especially for people who speak a lot, this rule can really benefit even when you're getting into any corporate meeting or team meeting or any room. Learn to just shut up and feel the dynamics. Rule number 5, in sec. Manners exist for a reason. And in fact, the Uni Hong, the author, when she was growing up in Korea, once she showed disrespect to one of the relatives and she was warned by her father. And she said, so what's wrong? No, well, manners are very important. And this reminds me of whenever I go and dine in Taj, a lot of time with my son Jap, and he always, because when I'm eating at times and I'm making noises, my son always then say, just be aware, you got to have good manners. So manners exist for a reason. Some people think that manners are superficial. Not necessarily, but very simple, using people by their first name or thanking people or request using word like please, that really enhance your nunchi. It builds connection with the people around. So manners exist for a reason. They're definitely not superficial, artificial. Some people don't, have good manners in public spaces, and they indirectly then offend people or unable to build that connection. Now this is special. Read between the lines can be theoretically slightly complicated, but let me simplify it. So we can always make judgment through half truth. Like if you can see this beautiful picture, if you are somewhere in this picture, which is near the trunk, or if you're holding this, you can assume this is like a rope or something. This is one way of looking at it. The other way is try and understand the context. What is the context? Context matter. And so even though if person is, so some people are very poor communicators. They don't know how to communicate their need, idea, and concerns. And if you have a good nunchi, you can just pick up like this. And I had very bad nunchi before my change started. This is 21st September 2015. Midway in the INSEAD program, discovered that I'm stuck, I'm a zombie, and my nunchi is poor. And since then, I started working on my nunchi. And now I try and understand the context. And some people have very poor nunchi. They go there and they just try to throw their idea, throw their perspective. I'm sure we have seen bosses, people, talent, everything go waste if you really do not speak with the context, or your inability to read the context, which means you have a poor nunchi. This is very simple, and I'm sure all of us have made errors in our life, and at times these were more with me, and all this is unintentional. We go out and hurt someone unintentional, or do things and say things unintentionally. But even hurt is hurt, whether it is. In fact, author was smiling. He say, once my dad wants me, that if it is, she said, with this relative, I was unintentional. Then his dad replied to Nihang that that's even worse. You did not have a goal and a plan. If it was intentional, it's appreciated. If it was not intentional, then it's worse. So even though so how nunchi is about doing things intentionally, you do it, you're more conscious and alive. And this is the last rule, which is be nimble, be quick, and how you adopt to situations. This reminds me of my college days and MBA days, and my nunchi was very poor. Despite trying to...
You got your racket?
You're
gonna play with Nano.
All right. So I remember my college days when I was struggling to adopt in social dynamics. I was into my own zone, and I remember my friend Abhishek Rajukar had fantastic nunchi. He would adopt. So if there's a party going around, he would dance with people. If there is some serious discussion happening around, he'll give his thought process and do a value addition, be empathetic with people. So how you quickly adopt in that room along with those people, this is the 8 rules. So these are the real gems, I would say. These are like 8 ratna, which I picked up from this book. Otherwise, the overall book is so fascinating and beautiful, and it's sort of a reinforcement to what I'm already practicing it. So this really helped. So I'm done with this, Nipun. These are the 8 rules. A little bit about me. So I'm building a platform. So I had a hurdle in my own life, and which was like a mountain, and which I have overcome, and now I'm helping people to overcome their hurdles. It's a platform which will have experts, professors, CEOs, founders, and sharing their toolkits to overcome hurdles. So we are releasing our website sometime on the Valentine Day, in fact, next week, and we'll be releasing our platform in March. So this is it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amit. It was fantastic. I think these were not just 8 ratnas, these were 8 more ratnas. And while you were talking, the good thing about books and talking about books is you can relate to various things. So I could, in my head, I could relate to Karm Siddhant. I thought of that famous elephant in the rope story of wise men, and how to win friends and influence people. I think you mentioned about calling people by name. I think that's a good part of a great book that you can relate to it. And I completely am in awe of nunchi. So this goes on my reading list. Thank you again, and wish you the very best for your new venture, The Hurdle.
Thank you so much, Nipun.
Great. Now we move to our second book and the second friend of book, Hitesh. Hitesh leads the app experience of Flipkart, app which a lot of us use almost every day as the head of product. He has worked in past with companies like Myntra, Ola, and G in product and technology based roles. He's a firm believer in continuous learning, loves reading a variety of books, and also likes applying them in his corporate and personal life. Hitesh is based out of Bangalore, enjoys food, driving, and traveling in his free time. Welcome, Hitesh. Very good morning to you, and thanks for being here. Okay, Hitesh, you can't unmute. Let me unmute you. Now you can.
Hey, thanks, Nipun. Thanks for the First of all, thanks, Amit. I will certainly be more aware of my Nunchi going forward. And of course, you were very quick and nimble in delivering the 8 rules to all of us. So really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Without wasting time,
Are you able to hear Hitesh? I can't. Hitesh, we are not able to hear you. It looks like there is a problem.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can. Now he can. Can
Okay.
you start again? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I'll start with a quick intro. I'm a director of product at Flipkart, father of 2, moderate reader. I cannot be a very engaged reader. These are 2 sons I'm talking about. Genres I like reading: life lessons, human psychology, leadership, technology. Favorite book, My Gita by Devdutt Patnaik. Would not be talking about that today because I think it will take some time for me to be in a state where I can start talking about a book as deep as Gita. Disclaimer: the thoughts expressed in the following slides are my takeaways from this book, which are based on my beliefs. And your takeaways from this book could be entirely different from my perspective. So don't treat this presentation as a substitute for reading this book. More about the author. So Annie Duke, she's the most successful and influential woman in the world of poker. She's a noted speaker and author. Some of the tournaments she has won are the World Series Poker Championship, National Heads Up Poker Championship, etc. So she's like really, really good at the game of poker. But what is this book all about, right? This book is all about making good decisions. But then why poker? Why not chess? Right? Like we could be talking about chess. The point is that life is a function, or the quality of life is a function of 2 things. One is the quality of decisions, and second is luck, right? Whereas, so therefore, poker is a good inspiration. And as you know, right, chess is purely dependent on the quality of decisions. The factor of luck is almost absent, right? So that's why the idea is taking inspiration from a game which involves both quality of decisions and luck, and not a game which involves only the quality of decisions. Right. So I'll quickly talk about the 3 principles which I learned from this book. The first one is, say, think of every decision as a bet, right? Whenever you think you are 100% sure about something, right? And this could be about the stock market going up or down, marrying somebody, your bet on you will enjoy a new book which you are about to purchase, etc. Think of this decision as a bet. So when you think of this decision as a bet, right, think like someone else is putting money on the table. You started questioning your beliefs. Then you started thinking of questions. What is it something that I don't know the other person knows? Is the information sufficient for me to make the decision, etc. Right? So when you start questioning your beliefs, you become like, say, from 100%, 70% confident, or 70% confident on the decision you want to take, right? And you dig deeper information, try to make prudent choices, right? So objectivity kicks in. There is accuracy, there is open-mindedness for new information, right? That's the first principle which I learned from this book. The second principle is about the positive expected value. So every decision you make, right, uh, the expected value of that decision is the possible reward you'll get out of that decision, and the likelihood of the reward, or you can say probability of the reward. The expected value is positive when the personal cost you are incurring to get that value is more than the is less than the outcome, right, or the expected value. So that's where you say that the expected value is positive in nature. I know it's very theoretical, so let me take an example from this book, right? So say you are playing a game of poker, right? And the possible reward for the pot is it's $200, right? And the likelihood of success is 50%. So you know that the expected value if you win this pot is $100. And for you to make your opponent show the hand, the cost you have to incur is $50. That's what you have to bet, right? Since that personal cost is less than the expected value, right? It's like it the book encourages you, or this principle encourages you to make that bet, because the personal cost is much lesser than the expected value. Now when the person makes this bet, it is not guaranteed that the person will win, right? So the desired result is not the validation of making a good decision. It is that when you keep making such good decisions continuously, overall there would be net positive impact in a series of events. So we are not talking about events in isolation. We're talking about series of events, and therefore just looking at your decision from the quality of outcome is not the right thing to do, right? That that moves that takes us to the third principle, which is the decision evaluation principle, right? So what do you do generally when you get the desired outcome, right? I think this would be the state. You would feel joy, you would be very happy about it, right? But what do great people do? And Annie Duke talks about some of the greatest poker players on what they do after winning the world championships, right? They go and talk about their every move and where all did they made mistakes. So it's not that only through bad outcomes people try to learn. It is also about the times when the outcome is favorable, but you question your decision making through that journey, right? So, so I think the commitment or the book inspires us, right? Whenever we get good result in life, we should at least find two mistakes we made and admit them to a friend or a co-worker or a partner, right? So this is what something which will keep us level headed. That's point number one. Point number two, because you're not judging your decision making from outcome, in the long run you would not make faulty decisions and land at being minus or a negative value of whatever be it, right? The outcome. Oh, this reminds me on the previous slide, right? When we talk about this expected value, right, I do not mean monetary value only. This could also be a value in terms of your happiness, your satisfaction, your health, etc. Anything, right? So these principles are not restricted towards monetary value. It is about the expected value in very different forms which you care about, right? The last thing which I would like to talk about is the part which I applied in my job, right? So there are a couple of frameworks which this book gives while making decisions. The two which I loved most are the principles of backcasting and pre-mortem. So these are nothing but say that when you're starting on a journey, right, it could be about any project, any product building, anything in life, right? You think 6 months down the line, or say a year down the line, if you're sitting in a room and this project has failed, what all things you will be discussing as a group, right? And list them down exhaustively. This will now give you a good sense of the points of failures in this journey so that you can address them upfront. The other way to do this exercise is so this is pre-mortem. The other way to do this exercise is backcasting, right? Which is just the same framework applied in positive sense. So you start a project today, And 6 months down the lines, this project is successful. And in a room, you're discussing, the success of it. So what all things would have gone right to make this project successful is what you should again list it down and double down on these areas so that you ensure that the project is successful. So I was able to apply these frameworks in my day-to-day work in the organization, and it really helped me get good outcomes. Right? At times, I got bad outcomes, but at least I know that the quality of my decisions were good when I made those. So right, so yeah, those were my learnings from the book. I hope those were you found them helpful, and thank you so much for it.
Oh, that was wonderful, Hitesh. I really love this principle, and I quite love how you talked about the part which you applied on your job. And yeah, some of it is I would say obvious, but at times we don't do, right. There's a saying that you generally dig into your failures, why, what could have been better, etc. But at times we don't think about when you're successful, what could have been better. I think that was one key takeaway for me, and this definitely looks like a good read. Do you play poker, Hitesh? Okay, do you play poker?
I do.
You do. Okay, I don't. So that was why I asked. I'll still try that. Even without knowing poker, will I be able to make the most out of it? Great. Thanks a lot, Hitesh. Really appreciate. We move to the next speaker, the friend of book and his book. But let me first unmute the person before I introduce. Yeah. Our next speaker joins us from a different time zone. He joins us from Australia. Sushant is a marketing enthusiast. He was before moving to Australia, which is a very recent thing. He was based out of India, worked with companies like Amway, where he's a category head, had a long stint with PepsiCo, and prior to that, he has worked with companies like Tata and Decom and Motorola. Sushant loves interacting with budding professionals, student communities, and he's basically a giver. And things like guest lecture, sharing his book summaries, which are immensely popular on LinkedIn, and basically a round the clock digital mentorship, if I could say. He likes to give it back to the society in whatever form, especially to student and young professionals. And he says that that also keeps him keep abreast of the thought challenges and makes him think more. And as Amit also said, when you share, you learn, right? And that is way of giving back to society. Sushant loves reading books both on Kindle as well as physical. Uh, I've met very few people who are equally comfortable, and he's one of them. And he's also a sports and travel enthusiast. So thanks, mate. Thanks, mate, for joining us. Over to you, Sushant.
Good. Thanks for the wonderful introduction, Nipun. And Nipun has been a very good friend of mine, and it's like an honor for me to get presented by Nipun. So it's truly a great pleasure to me. What I'll do today is, obviously we have 10 minutes. In 10 minutes, what I'll do is I'll share my top 5 learnings from the book, start with why. And as everyone, I've also created a couple of slides to share what my insights have been. And obviously, most of you must have read the book or heard the very famous talk from Simon Sinek, which was Start With Why. I think it was one of the most viewed TED Talk on YouTube. So clearly, it's one which is very famous. But I think for me, it's been really inspiring because there were some very strong takeaways for me, which I still implement in my life and still keep learning how to implement those learnings. So one of the first ones is people don't buy what you do. They buy why you do it. And what you do simply proves what you believe. And with that, I start the first learning, which is the golden circle of why, how, and what. So our sense of purpose, whether personally, professionally, is the key to success. And if we start with why, followed by how, and then what, these are the steps which help you achieve both personal satisfaction as a leader and it helps you grow and your organization grow as well. And there are two ways of doing things, right? One is when you start with what, followed by how, and then go to why. But if you start with why, where you go with the cause, you do what do you believe, you start with that, then you go to specific actions and realize what your why is, and then you go to what you do. That's the complete change in the way we think and do. And most of the organizations, right, and it's a simple example where a lot of organizations know what they do, right? These are, I mean, what is basically the products, the services, the features that we talk about, right? For any of the things, very a lot of people know what they do. Very few people or organizations know how to do it, right? uh, uh, these are things that make them special or set them apart from their competition. But very few organizations, very few people actually know why they do what they do. Why is not about making money. Like a lot of organizations say that my vision is to make profit. That's not what your why could be. It's just what, right? So why is the purpose, the cause, the behavior. And this is not just, I would say, an opinion. This is actually biology. And if you go into detail of how our brain is structured, so at the center there is the reptilian brain, which is the instinctual brain, where suddenly you get, say, a hot touch on your skin, you react, right? The inner layer then has the limbic brain, which is basically the emotional or the feeling brain. That's where our gut feeling comes in. A lot of times we say that on the face when there's an interaction happening, a lot of times people, what they talk about versus what they are actually thinking in their head, we are able to interpret whether it is there a conflict or not in what they are saying. So the emotional or the feeling brain is able to understand that. But it's the neocortex, which is the external part of the brain, which gives you the rational thinking, or the rational way of interpreting what you're thinking. So if you start with why, you are talking to the feeling part of the brain, the emotional part of the brain. And that is where the circle, the golden circle, has an impact. So, and to give you an example of how it gets implemented, and Apple is a great example, and it's been spoken in the book as well, that what companies do are external factors, but why they do is something deeper. And Apple's why is to challenge the status quo and to empower individuals. And that is why the clarity of why that gives them the remarkable ability to innovate, often competing against companies which are more qualified than them, outside their core business. So if you see, like, there are so many mobile phones, right? And despite of having limited features, right, versus, say, a 20,000 phone of Xiaomi and versus Apple, which is like almost 1 lakh rupees, people still paid because consumers who have strong why, understand the why of Apple, want to showcase that, the emotional side of it. That's why a lot of people still buy Apple, right? So it's only because Apple's why is so clear that those who believe what they believe are drawn to them. So that's the first and most important one. The second one, which has had a lot of impact in my thought process as well, is your marketing inspirational or manipulative? So manipulative marketing is all about giving discounts, doing short-term stuff, versus inspirational marketing is more long-term. And one is from a marketing standpoint, one is from an organization standpoint. The other part is from a personal standpoint, when you're managing a team, when you're dealing with individuals, right? When you're creating followers, if you manipulate consistently or manipulate for a certain time, you will slowly and steadily lose out. But if you can provide inspiration, if you can create that inspiration, so even, for example, in my team, I always believed in rather than getting the work done through fear, which could be manipulative, how do you create inspiration inspiration for them? How do you create the will and skill to develop? That's what, from a long-term perspective, has a lot of impact. So I think that's one very important aspect that I understood from the book about why it's important to be inspirational rather than manipulative. The third thing which I started with is people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. We believe in challenging the status quo and thinking differently. So we design our products to be beautiful and simple to use. This is Apple, right? So Apple leaves their audience in inspiration, appealing to people who also feel they challenge the status quo. So inspirational marketing and a clear sense of why is what engenders brand loyalty, right? The fourth one is your decisions should be consistent with your why, right? And companies and employees will be more successful if they align their why and make sure they both believe in the same things, right? If companies choose partnerships or leaders who do not support the company's why, this usually causes problems and loss of trust from customers and employees. So you have to be consistent in what you do and why you do. And that why has to be central to whatever you do consistently over a period of time. And that is where you will become effective and successful. The last learning, there are many of them, but I think the top five, among the top five, this was which actually has a lot of impact. It's how a lot of startups actually work, and this is basically a bell curve which showcases that you don't need to target everyone in the market, right? So there are certain behaviors, there are certain cohorts of consumers who can be bifurcated into innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority, and laggards. So, and to give you specifically what innovators mean, so innovators are people who want to be the first to try the innovation. They are venturesome, interested in new ideas, and very willing to take risks. And they are often, so there would be people who would be standing in the queue when an iPhone 10, iPhone 11 comes in, right? So these are people who want to try out new things. So these are the innovators, and they are like roughly around 2.5%, and it could vary a bit, but then these are very few people, but these are the first ones that we should target if we want to create a community. The second is early adopters. These are people who represent opinion leaders. They enjoy leadership roles, embrace change opportunities, and they are already aware of the need to change and are comfortable adopting new ideas. So these are people who are on the edge, who first see the innovators, and then once they kind of see that it's something which is interesting, they will also adopt it. The third is the early majority. And these are rarely leaders, but they do adopt new ideas before the average person comes in. So they typically need to see the evidence. I would say I would be part of early majority. I'm not an innovator nor an early adopter, but yeah. And this is the majority. This is one of the big chunk which you will see is almost 34% of people would be there in the early majority. And this is where the tipping point, the tipping point tips as in the book, that this is where a lot of people start coming, understanding or believing in your purpose. That's the early majority. The late majority these are people who are skeptical of change, will only adopt on an innovation after it has been tried by the majority. And then finally there would be laggards, and there will be a lot of laggards as well. But these are few. These are people who are bound by tradition and very conservative. They are very skeptical of change and are hardest group to bring on board. Probably you don't even need them in your marketing or in your life. So it's all about how do you go through this journey and ensure that how quickly you come towards early majority and late majority, right? And these are the top 5 learnings that I could share with you guys. And definitely read this book. And if you don't want to really read this book, definitely, if you've not heard the TED Talk, hear that TED Talk and then read the book. You will get a very strong perspective and understanding about the book. So that's about it. Thank you. Over to you, Nipun.
Thanks, Sushant. I think while Simon's talk is mind blowing, he was nothing less. I think this was, I've read the books and this was a great take from the book, and very relevant example that you spoke about. And I think, the Frob is also about the joy of reading. It's good to see fellow readers here, and the whole idea is to make reading books social, because if you just read book on yourself, it's a very silo thing, it's a very personal thing. But right from getting great recommendations and of books which are as per your interest, and then talking about books make it much richer, right? And the perspective that you get stays longer and impacts you that much more. That's the whole idea of Frob. Sushant and everyone, all these small book talks will go to a YouTube channel, Frob.social, very soon, and then you can always refer to these talks later on if you want. Thanks again, Sushant. I think it will be evening in Australia. It's a Saturday evening, so enjoy your weekend. Really appreciate you taking out time. And we move to the next author, and sweet things come last. That's what our next speaker believes in. अगर अंग्रेजी में उनका नाम लिखें तो हो जाएगा Vishal, and that's what Vishal believes in. He believes in collaborative economy. He says his religion is minimalism and stoicism. His biggest priority in life is physical health, followed by mental, and followed by family's health. And if time permits, for the rest of the world, like they say in airlines, right? पहले अपनी life jacket पहने तब दूसरों की सेवा करें. That's a good philosophy, because only when you are fit you can help others. Vishal is a co-founder of ScreenMax Media, which is an ad sales company that undertake ad sales for companies like Entertain, etc., and some companies outside the network channel. And in the past, he has worked predominantly with media companies like 9X, Amagi, and Radio Mirchi. He's based out of Mumbai, and he's a voracious book reader. And if time permits, we will play a very small, quick, fun game with Vishal also. His three most recommended books are Atomic Habits, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, and the last one is what we just spoke about, which is Start With Why. Vishal, great to have you here.
Good morning. I'm just sharing my screen and we will start. The screen is visible?
Yes.
Good. So, as I mentioned, when you go for a buffet or a dinner, the last thing which you enjoy is the sweetness. This is what all of us learned when we were a child. A segment, a line. We were never taught the reality, which is this. We all know segment, we all know a line. Now that's what my book is all about. Black box thinking. What does the book actually taught me a lot? So when we look at success, when the organizations look at success, they look as a straight line. That's what, as I mentioned, we looked at kids. The reality is, if you look at to the right slide of the image which I have shown, this is Mission Mangal. It just couldn't go from Earth to Mars in a straight line. It had to rotate, it had to rotate, it had to fail. Only then it had to go. So Matthew Sayyed has actually got in details and saying, do you have a black box thinking? A recently Nepal plane crashed, and that's why I wrote the book review. What makes airline industry so successful? I had a fear of flying. I don't fear of flying at all right now, because the chance of death is 0.001%. What makes this industry so stark? Why is healthcare industry so bad? These examples I have applied to my real life. So I look at myself as pre-2015 versus pre-2021. The next slide. Yeah. So this is a story of a guy called Albert. He was cycling and he falls down. And he comes to Mama and says, Papa and Mama, I've done a wrong thing. मैंने एक साइकिल गलत चलाई आज. But he learned. There's a very famous saying called, अक्कल बादाम खाने से नहीं, ठोकर खाने से आती है. We all learn by mistakes. That's a core crux of these books. Do you want to embrace failure? The child embraces failure. Albert knows that next time he has to pedal at a certain speed. Albert knows that when he sees a red sign at the signal, he has to put both his legs down. He has learned. He has learned by mistakes. But the same Albert has now grown up and is trading in stock markets. And he continues to make losses. Why? So here is the three essence I want to share. What are the causes of failure? So when Albert has become big, he's got something known as fixed mindset. This is what it happens. That's how the user wants. That's how my boss says. That's how my wife says. That's how it should run. So it becomes an autopilot because he stops getting new things in the memory. The same Albert loses money in stock market. That's why the very famous statement I mentioned by Nitin Kamath. Just 1% of the traders make money more than fixed deposits. It's if information is the only key, then all of us here would have had six-pack abs and all of us would have become billionaires. It is not information. It is deciphering the information, looking at the information, analyzing, and most important, documentation and coming out openly and say. Now imagine, let's go back here. One of the famous plane crashes in the history, Concorde plane crash. They actually went deep dive studying what happened to Concorde. There was no blame game. They say, okay, we will investigate, we will go in details and come back. This one metal strip down, one metal strip led to the crash of Concorde and they have stopped after that. That's how they go deep dive. They want to study hard. They want to really understand. Now let's look at a movie called Ankur Arora Murder Case, a very famous Hindi Bollywood movie where the child expires. But the same guy will not come and tell in publicly what mistakes he has done. So I'm going back here. Let's go back here. Key takeaways. First fundamental key takeaways what he says. Do we embrace stillness? Do we embrace failures? As kids, we have nothing to worry. We will tell all our mistakes to our parents. But as we become older and as we become large organizations and as we start sacking people globally in the tech company, we will not come and say actually what went wrong in the good days. We don't want to embrace that part of the failure. We want to say, hey, the going has been tough, but what mistakes did we do is never acknowledged. And that's where, so the same company called Google, which the author has given example, has taken minute information like what color I should use. But I'm surprised and appalled how they failed when they hired additional 12,000 staff. It's embracing failure. Now, what causes failure? And what can actually you gain from movies? So there's a lovely movie called Chak De India. If each one would have seen by Shah Rukh Khan. Marginal gains. He says, okay, what can I do to make the team win? I just have to make small improvements. Marginal gains. The author says, Matthew, every plane crash gives you more information. What should we do next? What should we do? How should we proceed? Marginal gains. Success is never overnight. Like Hindustan Lever faced a problem with the nozzle. They say, okay, the nozzle is not giving the right output. How should I make it better? They had 5,000 trials. Dyson, a great vacuum cleaner kind of a company, changed the fortune. They had 5,000 prototypes. So unless you start embracing failure, unless organizations come and say on every Monday morning, hey friends, what are the mistakes done this week? People will never be open. It's a sad story right now. So I see it very often in India. Being out of job is a crime. But in US, being out of job is absolutely fine. So that's how two organizations, two cultures run. That's what Matthew Syed says. Embrace failure, embrace failure. Last and not the least, he says, go back and document your mistakes. In a plane crash, it's all open in the public forum. Should know the reason of Nepal plane crash very soon. You will know what happened in the California plane crash, but never with the healthcare industry, never with organizations, never with companies who sack people. So unless you can admit, but admitting is the first step, reading is the first step, acknowledgement is the first step. The intent is documentation. Can you document those mistakes openly and publicly to your team? Things will become far, far better. That's why he says in the end, flying is the safest mode of transport and not anyone else. So embrace failure, and most important, if you have not committed mistakes, this is a crime you are doing yourself. That's it from my side. Embrace failure.
Oh, that was very exciting and a very different kind of a book, I would say, Vishal. I've heard about books on these kind of things, but this is very provocative, I would say, and very different. So really interesting perspective that you brought from the book. Really appreciate. Also, I would take a couple of minutes. You were talking about your love of books and Bollywood. Can you see a little more on that?
So my interest is books and Bollywood. So let's say, take for example, a movie called Rocket Singh Salesman of the Year. I'm sure most of us would have seen. Or I will take a book called Start With Why, which is mentioned. There's a movie called Swadesh. Shah Rukh Khan actually wants you to make a plan. That Start With Why. He had his deep inspiration. Now look at a movie called Chak De India. Atomic Habits. Marginal improvement. He says my player has to move left to right, not right to left. So you can connect a book and a movie and actually make it very big. That's how I do. That's my passion. That's my ikigai, in other words. Books or Sultan, which is a movie of Salman Khan and Shah Rukh Khan. You can relate to a lovely book called Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. Ego kills everyone, right? But if you tell people you want to learn, no, everybody wants to learn, but nobody wants to be taught. So I use Bollywood as a reference to teach. So that's what all Indians love.
Oh, that's very interesting. And can you give some Hollywood examples, if you don't mind?
So Hollywood example is Air Force One. It's a lovely movie, how he embraces failure and how he comes out patience. It's a lovely book. I want to compare. Stillness is the key. The guy, the president, was still. He was making calculative decisions on what I should do. He didn't react abruptly. He didn't start firing. And that's what most organizations do. And he knew why comes in. He says, hey, the old is bad. Let's just grass. It's a lovely movie. Or the best movie is on stocks. You can just go and pick up any movie in the stock market in the American industry. You'll know how they actually connect back. In fact, today's Bombay Times talks about Titanic, a great movie about how leaders eat last. What did Jack do? Leaders eat last. He was a great leader. He sacrificed himself. Simon Sinek book. So you can connect books to Bollywood and you will be able to absorb it naturally into your system, because that's what we've been having as kids, right? Bread, butter or dal chawal. So do something which is natural to your body and hormones.
Oh, interesting. And yeah, I mean, if you come to it, the world is much more simpler than we think. I read somewhere all the international movies, and this person did that study in Hollywood. They said all the movies in the world can be classified into 7 themes. That's it. Right. And if you look at in India, I was speaking to someone who is very much in publishing, and she said, if you look at all the movies, you can assign them to the Nav Rasas that we have.
Correct.
Right. And that's why if you see, and it goes back to the conversation I was having with Amit in this session sometime back, that when you are speaking about a book, you start relating to various things. And that's what, being open as the first principle of Nunchi, which Amit said, be empty, your vessel should be empty, you should be open to take the learning. So yeah, I think that's very exciting, Vishal. That was fun. I wish I had some more time. I would have asked my favorite names of movies and see which book does it lead me to. On that note, thanks to all the speakers for joining. We really, really appreciate you taking your time. We have a very small token of appreciation, gratitude for you, which is there's a tree which has been planted in your name on this site growtrees.com. I think that's something which will grow with time and share fruits and better air with the planet, just what books do. And because you shared your time, that's a very small token that we have as a gratitude for you. To everyone who has attended today, a few requests. Download the Frob app if you are not on the app. It's a app where you can see suggestions, ask questions from your own communities, follow your interest-based communities, go to our YouTube channel where there's a lot of exciting content related to books flying around. We also have a WhatsApp community which you can join to see a lot of alerts, etc., which keep coming. I think the link is already posted on the chat window. Next week, same time, which is 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. IST, that is on 18th. The next book talk will be on the theme of learnings from books on lives of other people. So biographies, memoirs, There'll be 4 friends of books who will be talking about their takeaways from books like we saw on Mind Matters. The next book talk theme is life and lessons. So do join if you can. And thanks again, everyone, each of the speakers for sharing your time and valuable perspectives on the book, and to everyone who tuned in today. Thanks a lot, everyone, and have a good weekend. Bye.